Jeremiah is an experienced counselor. He is a registered professional counselor, master practitioner in clinical counseling with the Canadian Professional Counselors Association. The Canadian Professional Counselors Association, in case you didn't know, is a nationally recognized organization of independent, self-regulated, nonprofit organization. And Jeremiah is involved with them through, I think, the national president for the CPCA counseling program, and is also affiliated as a counseling therapist with ACTA. He's trained in almost 20 different counseling approaches, covering over 35 counseling issues. With all that skill and 5 children at home, it's hard to believe he has any spare time. But I understand Jeremiah is quite the guitar player. Sadly, Zoom is not the best venue for a little recital, so we may have to have him back sometime in 2025 and get him here to bring his guitar with him. So we're going to have to stay on topic tonight. In our exercise program at the Thrive Center, we had t-shirts made up that read, "Not just surviving, but thriving." And a lot of us here tonight are living with prostate cancer day to day, whether it's the gentlemen or their partners. So I'm looking forward to hearing new ways to thrive beyond the prostate cancer diagnosis.
All right. And so thank you so much for joining. It's good to see everyone here tonight, and those joining online as well. Glad you could join us as well. And any future viewers who are just checking out this video, hopefully this will be beneficial to you tonight. One of the biggest challenges, of course, is what's not to talk about when we're dealing with the challenges of something like living with prostate cancer and trying to thrive beyond diagnosis. So I've kind of have a little bit of, for lack of a better term, a little bit of everything. And so by all means, it may prop up questions. But one of the things that was on my heart when I went out for coffee originally with Richard, and he was sharing the vision with Prostate Calgary, was just, just sharing about that and just starting to think about some things of, when he asked if I'd be willing to speak, what are some things to share with it? So that's part of the therapist challenge, is what some things, may be too simple, other things might be too complex. So I've tried to kind of bring some application, but maybe also a little bit of vision to be able to share tonight with everyone who is dealing with prostate cancer tonight, and or any other secondary, thirdary issues that happen with it. Also, we'll be focusing a lot too on family members as well, because many of you may have a partner, that is also trying to figure this journey out, which is where I've aptly titled it, "Now What? What do I do with this thing called prostate cancer?" Some of you might remember, hopefully this won't trigger anybody too much, but many of you may remember that day when I discovered I had prostate cancer. What did I think about this diagnosis? What did I feel about this diagnosis? What did my partner family say, think, and feel? And ultimately, at the end of the day, and now what? See, maybe I was just retired, or I was just about to retire. Now what? Since when, as a guy, have I maybe been even, because I'm talking about these things called feelings already. Where is he going with this? When have I been in touch with my emotions? And now my wife tells me she feels shut out. Well, now what? I've been trying to open up to my wife, and now she's shut down. Now what? My new meds may prolong my life, but now I'm impotent. Great. Now what? So no easy answers, but I want everyone to know here tonight, even if they are tough questions, it's okay to ask the tough questions. May not always have the answers though, but it's okay to ask the questions, such as, you may have figured out the main theme for tonight, So now what? So what do we do with this thing? How do we thrive with this thing called prostate cancer? Well, one of the things I want to introduce tonight, a term you may or may not have heard about before, but it's the need to understand what is known as anticipatory grief and how to work through it. Many of us have heard the term anticipatory grief, or at least the term grief. I have a dad, he passes away. I'm very sad. I have to work through the grieving process. Maybe I have a partner who's passed away, a family member, a loved one. Now I have to work through the grieving process. But anticipatory grief is similar, but a little bit different. The definition of anticipatory grief in a simplistic way is grief that occurs before a loss happens. In other words, you have prostate cancer, and if I may call a spade, it means that you are going to die. But I'm still alive. But it's going to happen. When is it going to happen? Well, we don't know. It's for some people, it could be, and I'm not going to go into the stats. You guys probably know more about that than even I do. For some, it could be a month. For some, it could be a year. For some, it's 15 years. But it's grief that occurs before a loss happens. The emotions and loss through anticipatory grief, however, I'd like to suggest are like waves. Some are big, they're like tsunami waves, and some are small. And here's the reality with waves, there is no order in which they hit. There's no order in that. And this is important. The reason why is even just going with the traditional concept of grief and loss. A lady named Kubler-Ross came up with the 5 stages of grief that you may have heard of. Basically, denial, anger, bargaining, or what I like to call grasping at straws. Why, God, why? This isn't fair. Depression. Oh, what do I do now? And then this strange thing called acceptance. And it's important to recognize anticipatory grief with that. It's not just grief and loss, but it's a form of grief and loss. So even though there will be a grief and loss one day, when, like it or not, that old Ben Franklin statement, the 2 things common in life, death and taxes, it's the knowing that something's going to happen that's now out of my control that can create a form of anticipatory grief. The doctor said, what? No, denial. This is not fair. I'm so angry. What do I do now? Now what? Anger, bargaining. What? Come on, doc. There's got to be something we can do about this. Like, come on. I've actually been healthy. I've stayed away from the dilly bars, and got to be kidding me. This is happening. And then depression. Oh, what's the point of getting up today? Can't go to work anyways. So whatever. I'm feeling like garbage thanks to the meds they're giving me now. And then acceptance. That's again good to keep in mind regarding waves, because within the waves of acceptance, there can be different stages, little stages, big stages. My hope would be that everyone could get to a place to where I accept that I have this terminally ill thing called prostate cancer. Well, if that's you need to talk to me, and let's learn some stuff. And you should actually be sharing next time in one of these sessions of how you were able to accept it and continue on with it in a positive way. But many of us, when we deal with different things, even beyond prostate cancer, it's a hard place. All right, I accept the doctor said it. I can't deny it anymore. And that's a form of acceptance. But to actually be okay with it, I don't know if there's really such a thing sometimes. But can I maybe learn to be content or figure out how to thrive in it? That's kind of what we're talking about, isn't it? So this is where we got to figure out, how do we work through these things called anticipatory grief? This is where I would like to suggest, and this came from when I actually went for coffee with Richard. I was like, as soon as he said this, I was like, that's what I'm going to talk on tonight, because I love the name, that he told me about within Prostate Calgary. You see, men with prostate cancer need to become warriors. All right. I want to stir you up a little bit tonight, men, if that's okay, if I can stir anything up tonight, because a person who is part or belongs to Prostate Calgary is called a warrior. And I love that title. All right. It's a powerful title. And we have to be warriors. But before we talk about warriors, let's figure out what is a warrior. How do I become a warrior? Well, we got to look at the good old fashioned Merriam-Webster. And number one, this is a person who is engaged or experienced in warfare. Now, many of you are engaged in dealing with or figuring out this thing of prostate cancer, but many of you may not be experienced yet in how to do warfare, in being a warrior, to be experienced in the warfare of prostate cancer. Some of you might be, some of you may not. Some of you may be just checking out this on a video in a future video going, oh, this is like the guy's talking to me, but this was recorded a year ago. Okay, maybe I need to watch this video because I want to become experienced in this thing because I just got diagnosed and I'm just trying to figure this thing out. The second definition is a person engaged in some struggle or conflict. Well, that's why we're here, right? Because there's a struggle, there is a conflict in this war called prostate cancer, or even just cancer in itself, in whatever variations it has progressed, for lack of a better term, throughout the years. And so we want to, though, for tonight's sake, I'm going to be focusing on the how do we become experienced in the warfare of becoming a warrior to be able to apply the now what? How do I thrive in this thing called prostate cancer? So the first thing I want to talk about is warriors get trained. All right. And so I've got a little picture of a shield here because training is the shield to support those initial attacks, those fiery arrows, those negative thoughts, those feelings that come to us that go, oh man, oh, this is so much. It's overwhelming. I don't know what to do. We need that shield. We got to get trained of how to use our shield to protect ourselves and maybe our fellow family members and those around us. That's what I love about the shield concept. That's why I kind of picked more kind of Roman legion pictures, because the Roman legions were known and created some very strategic, tactical, modern warfare, for lack of a better term, of that time and day. One of them being they would use these styles of shields that were wide and long, and they would, one of them, yeah, fine, maybe you're okay. But you get 10, 20, a legion it was called, to be able to all surround. They were covered front, side, and back and top, and nothing would get through until they would get to the enemy line. And then look out, you did not want to be part of that part of the war because you were done for. All right, that's what the Roman legions were known for. Training prepares you, you see, for the future. Catch this, for the future, so you can live in the present. How do I thrive in prostate cancer? If you can just catch this line alone, hopefully this will inspire you to keep moving forward. It's prepare for the future so you can live today in the now. All right. Kind of like an old saying some of you may or may not have heard that goes, man, there is so much, worry and fear, and then the other person goes, well, dude, why are you so worried about tomorrow when there's enough worry for today? Got to live in the now and the present. That being said, in Warriors Getting Trained, I want to encourage you, if you have not watched some of the online videos provided by Prostate, granted, when I did watch a couple of the videos, got to admit, my legs did go cross every so often. It was like, oh boy, this is tough stuff. But but the more you watch, the more I was like, this makes sense. And if I was dealing with this or similar issues, there's some really good information that I want to encourage you as a warrior with prostate cancer to get trained and watch these videos. There is some good material on there. I'm very impressed. The next thing, hey, keep your appointments. This is part of that depression piece where it's like, I just don't want to go anymore. What's the point? Keep your appointments, but learn, ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask the tough questions. Make your doctor earn their keep. Okay. Getting your affairs in order. Ooh, tough one. But here's the fact. You have a knowledge of a future event that's going to happen. And in order to stay in the now and present, we do have to be trained and prepared for the future so we can live today. So the sooner those affairs are in order, whether it's estate planning, getting the will actually updated or done, maybe for the first time, it's important to do those things, to get them in order. So that way you can live in the now and not worry about the, oh, I got to do that next week. Oh, I got to do that next week. Next thing you know, a year's gone, and that may or may not be a good thing. Not to add fear in this conversation. Hey, can't forget about our partners, our family members, children, whoever, wherever they're at. We have to allow them to be part of the training as well. If you are watching this video as a partner of a warrior who is, you need to become a warrior as well, to be trained, to also know how to answer, to ask these questions, to help live in the now. Because it's not just always the individual dealing with it. It could be the other person, your partner, that's also just having a hard time grasping with this. What do I do? What happens when this, oh my gosh, everything as a child, yeah, we'll deal with it one day. But as an adult in the present, dealing with it now, easier said than done sometimes. But we got to allow everyone to be part of this. All right. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. Warriors get support. All right. And of course, the object of this with support is it's got to be the belt, which holds everything together. It provides support. Okay. I had a very odd job many, many moons ago where I was working at this glass manufacturing company, big, giant architectural glass. Well, they provided belts and kind of like I forget the terminology now, but like the shoulder belts and the waist belts that weightlifters use in order to be able to support the back, the groin, to be able to lift this heavy glass and go, wow, I'm stronger than I thought. No, the belt helps support to hold everything together. Part of support means warriors reach out and get the support they need. See, we are biologically wired, whether you're extrovert or introvert. In other words, people who like to be with lots of people, I just want to be by myself and deal with one or two people at a time. Either side of the spectrum, though, we are biologically wired to do life together in community, which means isolation is the secret enemy spy in the camp. If you want to know another technique of how to thrive, don't allow isolation in your camp. It means that even though I might like being by myself, I need to reach out and get support and be a part of people. I need to go to the June 2025 casino. All right. And actually be with other people, like fellow members, like fellow warriors, to be able to break the power of isolation in a person's life, which can be very easily to happen when, what's the point? Why should I even bother to continue? All right. Because isolation's happening. Unhealthy isolation. There is healthy isolation. That's another topic for a different day. Warriors develop healthy coping strategies. Healthy coping strategies are what I call the helmet to protect our head. In other words, specifically, what is often known as the prefrontal cortex, our thinking logical side, which the majority of men biologically and statistically tend to develop quite often. Okay. And we will talk a little bit about the limbic system, which is the emotion part, in a moment, but I want to just focus on this top part. And this is going to be a real practical hopeful takeaway to begin a conversation, to maybe look up some stuff online, ask for more information, all that stuff. Which, when we talk about our thoughts, I got a picture here of a washing machine that's spinning around. You see, I want you to think of a thought like that's running in your brain and it's beginning to go out of control. Oh my gosh, I got prostate cancer. When's going to happen? What am I going to do? What am I going to, see, this is the kind of thought that when you lie down at night, your brain goes on spin cycle. And if you're not on spin cycle, I can almost guarantee your partner is on spin cycle. What's going to happen? Oh my gosh, how long does he have? And when is this going to happen? And I mean, what am I going to do now? Spin cycle. What do we do with these out of control thoughts so I can thrive in this challenging circumstance? Well, we need to learn first and foremost how to challenge these thoughts. One of the ways that within therapy that has been proven over and over again to help support that, one of very many strategies, but the one that I like to share when I do these kind of presentations is what is known as Socratic thinking. There's good old Socrates, Socrates, thinking. He was a thinker and he asked a lot of questions, which is where this concept came from, out of what is now traditionally known as cognitive behavioral therapy. Within cognitive behavioral therapy, Socratic thinking is a way to slow down our thoughts. In other words, if I take out my brain, see my brain right here, and it's spinning around, it's going on a curl, I got to go, whoa, 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 slow down, slow down, slow down my thoughts. Think things through so I'm not making rash, impulsive decisions. Slow it down. Okay, we're calm, we're good. And then we got to challenge our thoughts. Once we're good, then I can pop my brain back in. And now I can logically function. I can think things through, see more clearly, make wiser decisions. So how do we do this? What are we talking about? Socratic thinking. How do I challenge these thoughts? Well, a couple different questions. Depending, this is just a few ideas I thought of. May or may not be relevant to you or not, depending where you're at in your journey of this. But example number one is, how do I tell my wife I've been diagnosed with prostate cancer and I may not live for another year, or maybe it's 10 years, man, how do I even say it? I'm even trying to process myself. Maybe you have a different one. And how do I tell my partner I'm just not able to get an erection, thanks to the meds, thanks to just wherever I'm at in life. And I just don't feel like a real man anymore. I don't want to tell other guys I don't feel like a real man anymore. This is embarrassing. This hurt. Oh man, the shame that can happen on a man with this, where then we isolate. No, we got to challenge those thoughts so we can get out of that isolation. The other question that I have here that you're seeing is the third example. And maybe this is a partner question or a family member question. How do I have a relationship with my diagnosed partner? And when tomorrow, I don't know, he says 10 years, but the doctor said maybe a month, maybe a year. How do I have this relationship with my partner when tomorrow could be his last day? I am so terrified of that. What do I do? That's a very good thought to challenge and question, or to question and challenge. So one of the ways we can do that is, again, as I said, is Socratic thinking. And this is just a few samples of some of these questions. You can write down, watch the PowerPoint, watch the replay afterwards, and then you can write it down, and there's way more than this. This is just kind of what I felt was appropriate for specifically if someone was dealing with prostate cancer, I would probably give them some of these questions for consideration. What is the evidence for this thought? And a lot of times they have like two parts, like what's the evidence against it? When we look at the partner question, it's like, how do I have a relationship when they might be dead tomorrow or 10 years from now? What's the evidence? Well, I just said that he was given the diagnosis of prostate cancer, but what's the evidence against it? We don't know it's going to be tomorrow. It could be maybe a month, a year. Could it be 15 years with hopeful ongoing advances within the medical community? We have to challenge those thoughts. What's the evidence against it? To look at things in a different way. Am I looking at all the evidence or just what supports my thoughts? Oh, I'm dead. What's the point of moving on? Well, I might as well just give up. No. Am I looking at all the evidence? There is huge shift within the medical community in the last 10 to 20 years from my current understanding compared to where it was back in the day. Good. I'm in my 50s, so that's good news for me. God forbid, should I become part of a stat that I hope I don't, but I can't be naive either. And so those are just things. Well, that's okay. I'm being real with y'all tonight, but am I looking at all the evidence? That's why it's important to ask these questions, figure these things out, things that are getting in the way, and figure out different techniques, let's try some different medication. And if it's not working, but I have to be careful that it's not just what supports my thought, because that's where we can often, what's called a cognitive distortion. We often distort that, hey, I'm still alive today and I need to do the best of what I can, even though I might feel like crap today. Is this thought, here's another one, is this thought black and white? We certainly have had a lot of black and white thinking with the last American election. Oh yeah, I gotta vote Democrat. Oh, gotta vote Republican. Trump, Trump, Trump. Come on, come on. I don't care. Is your decision for when our next election comes up, hopefully sooner than later, as they would say. Oh, little political bias there coming out. My bad. Is this thought black and white when reality is way more complicated? Well, the doctor says I'm going to die, so I guess that's it. No, this is complicated stuff. There's a lot more. And some of you may be in this viewing that have been around for more than a year or two or three or four or five and going, yeah, I mean, I deal with clients all the time who, I don't know what to do. Well, what do you mean? My parent was diagnosed with terminal cancer 15 years ago and they're still going. A month later, they come in. So what happened? They died. Wow. So these are realities that happen. But boy, I'll tell you, my hope would be that could I have redeemed as much time as I can in the best way possible without being so worried about tomorrow, because today again has enough worries of its own. Another one, am I having this thought out of habit, or do the facts support it? That's a good question to ask, because sometimes, even prior to diagnosis, pre-diagnosis, I may have been just one of those people who just was a hypochondriac. Maybe I did have thoughts where, out of habit, oh, that's it. Everything's over. What's the point of playing the game? What's the point of watching the rest of this game? What's the point of watching Mike Tyson? Oh, guilty confession, I watched the game. Oh, that I might need counseling for that one. Okay, sad, but we'll move on from that. Am I having this thought out of habit, or do the facts support it? Hey, the doctor did say, maybe it is the actual terminal definition. Oh boy. But we also have facts that state that not everyone, some will pass on sooner than what we had hoped for, and others keep going on that we don't understand. But it's important to challenge those thoughts so that we can redeem the time that is given, whatever that time is. Moving on, warriors take responsibility. Here we go. This might be tougher for the men. The women, the majority might go, oh yeah, talk about this, Jeremiah. I need my guy to get this. Well, I'm just going to introduce a concept. But warriors take responsibility for their primary emotions, not secondary emotions, because there's hundreds of secondary emotions. And as we're about to learn, I just like to keep things simple. So primary emotion simplifies it. It gets to the root issue. And the breastplate is what I call, that's the guard for our heart. That's the armor for our heart. by utilizing and understanding and applying primary emotions. So when warriors take responsibility for their primary emotions, first and foremost, warriors must, I'm sorry to say, you can't go around it, you can't go over it, you can't go under it. You must go through the emotional loss of the diagnosis. Henceforth, anticipatory grief. We are going to have to go through that grief, anger, denial, depression. Ugh. We got to go through it. And it's going to be in different ways, different intensities, different days, not in that exact order either all the time, but we got to go through it. And it is a loss. It's an emotional loss. Primary emotions, what are we talking about? The main primary emotions, depending on what literature is read or understood by the quote, quote experts out there, are primarily hurt, fear, anger, shame, loss and rejection, sadness and despair. Surprise, guess what I came home with? And joy. Ooh, that's a tough one. That's the one that's my hope for all people who are, when I'm dealing with health, specifically health and emotional issues, is, if you had joy, probably wouldn't be here. But we do need to cultivate joy to give us hope for that future, to live in the present, to be able to thrive with prostate cancer. But here's the thing. Why are we talking about emotions? Now I want to clarify. I'm not talking about feelings. Oh, no. That just puts a shiver down my spine as a guy's guy, an Alberta boy kind of guy. I'm talking about emotions from a male perspective tonight. That is a way to understand what's happening, not just in our prefrontal cortex that we just talked about, but also what's called the limbic system, which is our emotion center, and to be able to learn how to take responsibility and accountability for what's happening so we can go through this emotional loss more effectively. I want to briefly talk about, before I go into how do we do this, I just want to briefly touch base on depression, anxiety, because they are huge topics for today's world and society. And of course, depression is often one of the 5 stages of loss that we have to go through. Anxiety, although it's not technically there are other forms of grief and loss that include anxiety. But the way I like to look at it is this way. Depression and anxiety are actually both outcomes of unresolved primary emotions. Specifically, let's look at depression first of all. That's the main one I'm going to focus on, and I'll touch briefly on anxiety. Depression, all right. I and other colleagues of mine, we go with the notion that, yes, there can be chemical components for both depression and anxiety, like when a woman has postpartum, all right, and after giving birth to a baby, there can be some major severe depression. That is a chemically induced form of depression within the body. And then hopefully up to somewhere generally between that 9 to 14 months, maybe 16 or more, it kind of works out of the stream. And it's like, okay, I'm sane again, I'm good to go, because that part is now gone. All right. And I will have women come in and I will support them through that to give them strategies to be able to work through that. But for the non-chemical side of depression, hey, by the way, you happen to have prostate cancer. Great. See, depression, I'll even add one more before I talk about it. Some of you may have already had pre-diagnosed or observable depression prior to prostate. So all that's going to do is compound your depression. So what are we talking about, Jeremiah? Depression as an outcome is often a result of unresolved primary emotion of anger. So in some regards, when I have people who come in and go, man, I'm so depressed, I need help, what do I do? One of my first questions is, what is the unresolved anger in your life? What are you angry at? And so some of you might be just, I'm angry that I got prostate cancer. This is not fair. This sucks. Good. Be angry about it. Just be careful how the outcome of the anger is. That's a different discussion for a different day. Same thing with anxiety. If depression, the way I like to describe it, is what holds a person back from having momentum to move forward in life, anxiety is what prevents the person from being able to move forward in life, which is often an outcome of unresolved fear. So there may be past fears, there may be some present fears. Oh my gosh, I have a diagnosis. There may be future fears. When is this going to happen? When's the end date, doc? I'm sorry, we just don't know. We have an idea of maybe when it could happen, but many of them just don't and can't be specific with it. All right, because they're practicing medicine, with all due respect to the medical community. So anxiety is often that outcome of unresolved fear, which means I need to also work on my fear. So if you are an individual who is watching this, who is struggling with anxiety, one of the ways to help thrive with this prostate cancer is to be able to deal with the fear of prostate cancer in order to challenge it and to be able to move forward in it, to create momentum in your life, to do the things you want to do on a regular basis, day to day. This is where neuroscience, or what I call the scientific power of naming our emotions to self-regulate, is so powerful. But I want to be mindful, this is not a miracle cure. But neuroscience in the last, I'll say 20, 30 years, has recognized simply this. When I even just speak, or if I write, most guys don't like to write. Some do, but not everyone. But even when I speak, I'm so angry at this diagnosis, and I'm so terrified of what the future holds. What actually happens in our brain is the parts of our brain on fire that are high up here in emotion, just by naming it and saying it out loud, getting to the root issue, it lowers it down. Now, the reason why I say it's not a miracle cure is that quite often I still have to work through what I am working through emotionally. All right. But it might be the one thing that prevents me from saying or doing something I regret, whether it's a personal negative choice or whether it's something I say or do to my partner or family that brings harm. And now we're in crisis, because even forget the prostate cancer, everything else is exploding in life. Just naming it can help us to self-regulate. That's a very powerful skill to live with and to work through on a day-to-day basis to live life. Dealing with primary emotions supports self-regulation. It also humanizes your situation that you're dealing with. It also will support your situation with your family partner. Honey, what's going on? I'm just really fighting a lot of fear today. All right, let's work that through. Let's maybe it's time to go see the doctor again, or talk, find a therapist that you can find a good, healthy therapeutic rapport with, and talk about this stuff, work on some strategies to cognitively challenge and to emotionally regulate. See, I view the reason why I talk about both head and what some might call heart, or the emotions, is because if I'm just focusing on one or just the other, technically, I wonder if that means that we're actually only dealing with life in a half-brained way. And I want everyone here tonight to begin to consider, maybe it's time we start walking in our whole brain and be whole-brained and work in a whole-brained approach, so we can be logical and caring and succeed to the best of our ability with the time left with this thing called prostate cancer. Warriors leave no man left behind. You need strong, solid footwear to create not only personal momentum, but also to be able to support the team, your fellow brothers or family members. In other words, when we leave no man left behind, this is individually and also within our community. We have to do both. Because if it's just individual, it can lead to isolation. If it's just community, we forget about those around us, or I still have to create healthy self-care in my life. We got to do both. We got to learn how to do both. As a reminder, you are not in this alone. This is leaving no man behind. You're not alone. Come out to the next group, man. Come watch this video. Go to the casino. Go to the next event that's coming up. Unless you choose to be. Your choice. I'm not here to make you do anything. I can't make you do anything, but maybe I can influence you to go, maybe I'll take one step and move forward. And again, this also includes partners and family members. This is not just for the men here tonight. This also, leaving no man left behind, supports finding purpose for life. How do I move forward? How do I proceed with this? How do I go, what now? Find purpose. This could be with partner. This could be finding purpose with your children, your grandchildren. Maybe there's some bucket lists that need to be pulled out, things that you thought I'd never do, but maybe you have some time to do it now, or look at creative ways to do it. Maybe there's stories to write down so you can maybe create some as well momentum and legacy. You got to find what's going to work for you. Everyone's going to be a little bit different. I'm just trying to give some creative ideas, but you're going to have to be the one to figure out, what is it that I need to do to figure out some purpose for life? Yes, there are going to be. That's why we got to put our boots on. Bootstraps up, if you've heard that term before, if you've been part of the Army. There will be ups and downs. This is a process, not a destination. What's ironic about that statement is statistically, the majority of men tend to think in a way where they go from point A to point B. All right. When I drive from Calgary and I visit my mom up in Edmonton, it's not, oh, look at that nice place, we should visit there. No, it's, I must get to Edmonton, and can I make it under 2 hours without getting a ticket? Because we often are very destination minded. But part of how to thrive with prostate cancer is to start walking in the process, in the journey, one day at a time, in as healthiest way as possible for what we're able to do for the day. We need to intentionally, as I keep mentioning, connect to other warriors to break the unhealthy practice of isolation. Warriors strategize and take action. Got a couple different weapons here because you need the right weapon for your fight. We got some modern warfare. We got some modernized good old archery, bow and arrow. We got the sword. If it was Arnold Schwarzenegger, it'd be a 20-millimeter Uzi, or however he says that. Hey, what's your plan of attack, warrior? What's the one thing tonight that I can take away with and begin to apply in my life tonight? Who, even if it's just one person, even if it's one event, who am I going to reach out to? And maybe it's, I need to start reaching out to my doctor again. Maybe I need to reach out to my partner. Maybe I need to reach out to my child, my adult child. Who am I going to reach out to? Breaking the isolation. How do I prevent this isolation thing Jeremiah keeps talking about? Am I in isolation? Honey, am I in isolation? Oh, yeah. Or, no, actually, you're doing good with that, but we do need to maybe start attending, get some more supports in place. How do I live out the rest of my life with family and friends to the fullest way possible to enjoy and take life in one day at a time? What, in other words, do I want to leave as a legacy, to create vision, to give purpose, to take it one day at a time? You see, warriors win when they fight together day to day, no matter the outcome, because we know the outcome ultimately. Warriors win when they fight together day to day, no matter the outcome. In conclusion, warriors provide hope for your family. Warriors provide hope for future warriors. Warriors provide hope for you. So I want to encourage you to take it one piece or one piece of armor, one day at a time. And for lack of a better term, every good general often says that famous word here. Now get out there and fight the good fight, because you and your family are worth it. I want to thank you so much for your time tonight. And I'm not sure if there's a question answer period or not, but absolutely, if there is, you are more than welcome to ask questions tonight.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Some very powerful thoughts there. And I want to thank you for sharing it. Every time we do a presentation, I always learn something new. Something. My wife, Wendy, is here with me tonight, and sometimes I'm afraid what she learns that I'll end up paying for it later, but
Avoid eye contact, right?
yeah. Yeah. Interesting, though, that you talk about support. I think everybody here is here for support, and that's really what we live for. But we are not alone. I want to thank a few people before we take questions. I want to thank Rhett for his technical skills. Rhett is our videographer for many, many years. I want to thank Richard for putting our programming together. I want to thank Leslie for looking after all the little details, because they are way over my head, or I've forgotten them. And I want to remind everybody, December 4th is the Pathfinder event, but Tuesday before that is Giving Tuesday. And I want to thank our resource librarian, Antonio, who looks after the resources. The table there is updated each month with a wellness letter from the University of Berkeley in Southern California. So I just wanted to get those thanks in before everybody leaves. Any questions in the room? Les?
Do you have a book, Jeremiah?
Do you have a book, Jeremiah?
Unfortunately, I currently do not have a book, but thank you for it's on my heart. I just have to figure out how to organize my content. And one of the side things that I do is primarily relationship counseling, but because of I have a very broad base within over 35 years of not-for-profit. And so I've dealt with a lot of different situations, which is often where I get called in to talk about very different topics, so that's why I love, and appreciate the honor to be able to speak tonight about prostate cancer, but from a therapeutic perspective. But thank you. No, currently I don't, though, but maybe one day.
Well, when that day comes, we'll help. Yes.
If Jeremiah were to recommend, following up with what Les is saying, if Jeremiah were to recommend his best go-to book, what would it be?
The question is your best go-to book. What would you recommend as a read for anybody in the room?
Well, I always like to say this: no matter what doctor or therapist, counselor you get in here, we all have what I call a bias. And so depending on that bias, indirectly, you may have caught it, you may have not, that's okay. But because my soul, heart, and purpose and vision is towards relationship, and when you're dealing with terminal issues such as prostate cancer, we have to have relationship. And that doesn't mean just me individually. It means my loved ones, my family, my partner, all these different things. And so with that, it is being able to develop our relationship skills. That's a fancy way of saying things like communication skills and relationship, but this is stressful stuff. This is stuff that can't be taken lightly, and it adds a high amount of stress that can create challenges within relationships. So from a book perspective, give me one moment. My number one bias book, if the relationship piece is stirring you in any way, is a book by Dr. Sue Johnson called Love Sense. Unfortunately, she herself last year, about probably 6-7 months ago, passed away of cancer, unfortunately. So that was a great loss in my life because I have learned tremendous amounts of material. Honestly, couples counseling is always considered by therapists to be the scariest, and most therapists actually don't do couples counseling. I'm one of the ones who actually likes doing it. And it's amazing in the last even 20 years, 20 to 40 years, to be fair, the shift that has happened with couples counseling. You know, there are couple situations that actually improve and they stay married and get together and continue to thrive in life. And yes, prostate cancer is another scary event in life that can happen, but it's more of a question I'll leave. Can it lead to a more fulfilling relationship, to be able to create deeper sense of intimacy and connection? That is so important, you know, but that's where the struggle comes in. And so, yeah, sometimes it is important for that couple to come in to get a little bit of support, you know, to be able to get some help through the scariness and fear of prostate cancer within the relationship.
Okay, we've got one online question. And you don't have to answer this because it could be a little bit personal, but
Okay.
have you had your PSA checked?
I will be.
Yes.
Neil, I actually, my doctor gave me the exam actually, just because I'm in my 50s now. And
Yes.
he's actually there. And I want to add as well, if there are members or other family members who are watching this, the reality is too, you should be getting a regular prostate exam as well. But many men struggle and do have a very difficult time because of the muscles within the anal area to be able to have a proper prostate exam. And all I can say to this is that is where I often will recommend it and refer people to see a pelvic therapist, because a pelvic therapist can actually support you to have a proper prostate exam and do it properly. Not all men deal with it, but some men do deal with it. So they avoid it, and henceforth they could have avoided and been diagnosed earlier rather than later. So very important. Great question.
Wow, Jeremiah, they're letting you off the hook easy tonight.
Come on. I'm all psyched up for tough questions, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And,
Yep.
you know, by all means, if there are other questions that are maybe more private in nature, absolutely. I have no issues if you want to send them to Brad to be able, you know, and you can send those to me and I'll do my best to do a kind of a brief, quick response as well. So
Once again, thank you, Jeremiah. It was very enlightening.
you're
We
very
appreciate
welcome.
your time very much.
Thank you so much.